Hi, I'm Adam Drake, and today I'm going to talk about pillow ball maintenance, show you kind of the process and the steps that I go through to maintain the pillow balls on my Mugen vehicles. Now, there's a couple different methods. You can use like a graphite dry lube, or you can even just use a simple #2 pencil. The #2 pencil trick was something that Dan Hissam, Dino Dan, showed me a long time ago, and it's a method that a lot of people use, especially like when you're traveling to races. You don't want to have to bring a big can of dry lube, and the #2 pencil gets the job done, and it's really simple. So with a pillow ball suspension, you don't typically take the front uprights and pillow balls out that often, but a lot of dust and dirt can get in there, and it can cause the pillow balls to get bound up. If they get bound up, your whole front suspension is bound up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble these front uprights, pull the pillow balls out. I'm going to show you, because these have extremely worn out pillow balls. The hard anodizing is actually worn off them. So I'm going to show you that so that you know when it's time to replace the pillow balls. And then I'm going to show you a little tip using the #2 pencil and also the graphite dry lube, to where you can kind of refresh and get the suspension back to working free again without having to replace a ton of parts. So I'll go ahead, zoom in, and give you guys a closer look at how I perform these tips. All right, so the first thing you'll want to do is you want to go ahead and clean the uprights really good. I'll go ahead and drop these into my ultrasonic cleaner, and just make sure that any excess kind of dust and dirt gets cleaned off. If you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, you can use just soap and water or toothbrush. And then once those parts are clean, we'll go ahead and use the #2 pencil on one of them and the graphite dry lube on the other. The next step will be to take the four, I'm not even sure what we call these, but it's basically the plastic piece that retains or holds the pillow ball in place. So when you adjust this outer nut, that nut fits, or the plastic piece fits into the nut, and then that clamps down onto the pillow ball and holds it in place. Now you can see with these pillow balls, the anodizing is worn off and the balls are actually slightly out of round. Now that tells you it's time to replace those. But if I didn't disassemble all this stuff, you wouldn't really see the amount of wear, because the wear is just in the contact points where the ball touches the upright, and then where this cap or spacer kind of touches the ball. So we're going to go ahead and replace these balls, but for now we'll use them just to put it back together and kind of show you. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean these uprights, and then we'll be back to the next step in the video. So the first step is going to be to take these plastic pieces that capture the ball, your #2 pencil, and you're just going to want to work all the way around this little spacer, as if you were kind of coloring in the lines a little bit. And all that you're trying to do is coat the whole surface that comes in contact with the ball with a little bit of graphite from the pencil. So another reason why I like this method a little bit better than using the actual spray-on graphite lube is it's just a little bit cleaner. You don't have any excess graphite. It's just coating the surface where it contacts the ball. You're not actually spraying the whole part. So we'll go ahead and do that to the other piece. And you'll actually feel it's kind of rough when you first start doing it, because there'll be a little bit of like dust and dirt that's embedded into the plastic piece. And then as you work your way around, you're kind of scraping that dust and dirt out of the way, and then you're just coating it really nice with just a little bit of graphite from the pencil. Now, the next step, you'll take the upright and you'll basically do the same thing, but inside the upright where the ball touches the surface of the upright. And it's a little bit harder to get in there, but if you just kind of work it around, same thing, you'll feel where the surface is almost getting smoother as you're kind of knocking down some of the dust and dirt that may have been in there or kind of damaged the plastic. And then this graphite will kind of fill those gaps, and then it'll work as a lubricant without attracting a bunch of dust and dirt when you hit the track again. So you want to make sure you just do that to both sides of the upright. Now you can do this when all the parts are new, but for the most part, the Mugen upright and these little spacers, they're pretty hard, and everything's really, really smooth at first, and no real need to do this when it's brand new, but you can if you want. I normally don't do this until I'm actually servicing my vehicle. When all these parts are new, I just bolt it together as is. So from there, you'll go ahead, screw that in. And I always like to almost like over tighten that to where it's pretty tight. And then I'll position the pillow ball to where it's up. And then I'll just slowly start to loosen the nut till the pillow ball drops. And then once it drops, I'll check, make sure that there's just the tiniest little bit of end play. And then you can see that the pillow ball is super free, just kind of flops around in there. I'll even take and I'll push the pillow ball in and make sure that it still rotates free. And when you get to a point to where you do this little tip with the graphite and it still feels kind of tight, it might be time to go ahead and replace the uprights and just put new parts on so that everything's smooth and good to go. Now, as far as the graphite dry lube, it's pretty simple, but again, it is a little bit more of a mess. Basically, you're just going to lightly coat all the parts. And then once this sits for a little bit and dries out, you can go ahead and assemble it. I don't really like this method too much because again, it is kind of messy. You have to carry this big can with you if you're traveling to the races. If you're doing local events, it's fine, but for the most part, this isn't something that I do on a regular basis, like throughout an event. This would be something that I would do when maintaining my vehicle before an event. And then in most cases, you wouldn't have to do this until the next race. It just depends though on how dusty the track is. So let me go ahead and throw one of these in here. I'll do the same method where I tighten it down and then I'll back it off until you'll see the pillow ball drop. Another kind of thing, when you go to assemble this nut, you always want to kind of go backwards first. You'll hear the nut kind of click into place to where the threads are lined up, and then you can go ahead, crank the nut down. Otherwise, sometimes you can cross thread that nut going into the upright. So back it off till it drops. Make sure there's just a tiny bit of play. Spin the ball, make sure everything's free. Put some force, press it in, make sure that the ball still spins free and that it flops around. Another little trick that I'll do on really dusty tracks is I'll just take a piece of vinyl or a sticker and I'll cut the sticker and I'll put it over this hole. That way it kind of helps or stops a little bit of dust and dirt getting in there, so that you don't have to service the pill balls quite as often. But this is something that I think sometimes can be overlooked, but it can hinder the handling of your vehicle if you don't make sure the pillow balls and your uprights, everything like that, are free. Otherwise it'll bind up your suspension, and you don't want to have that. You want to have everything working free to get the best performance out of your Mugen vehicles.